The southern border is a complete and total disaster, epic proportions, historic proportions, and of course, Democrats and members of the media and late-night comics, they just want to focus on 50 illegal immigrants who were moved to Martha's Vineyard because, well, I have no idea why that's their priority. Let's get somebody who might be able to answer that question. He is Representative Ralph Norman of South Carolina, Republican in the House. Congressman, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, Larry. Thank you.
This is overwhelming what we're seeing at the border here. And before we get to the moving of illegal immigrants to other jurisdictions in this country, can you show some scale to this in terms of how these southern states are being affected by this flood of humanity?
Well, Larry, we've got, to my knowledge, the guesstimate is 2.1 million migrant encounters this year alone. Over 200,000 in August. If that gives you any context, the Clemson football stadium holds 81,500. So each month is 2 to 4 football stadiums released into the country that we have no idea who they are. They don't speak the language. We don't have any background on them. Are they gang members? Are they criminals? And it's being done intentionally by the Biden administration. And, you know, I've been to the border twice, and if you want to see a sad sight, to see, one, all the baby formula stacked on shelves, to see the diapers, to see the medical care that's being given to these illegal immigrants, it's astonishing, but it's being done intentionally. Yeah. And for Mayorkas to continue to say that the border is secure, my question at the oversight hearing was, Mr. Mayorkas, if the border's secure, can you define for me what unsecure is?
Yeah.
Of course, he just didn't say anything.
Yeah,
really
I would think not, because there's no real answer to that question, Congressman. But I'm glad you're there asking it. Listen, when the administration continues to parrot this same line from Karine Jean-Pierre to Kamala Harris and all the way up and down the line that the border is secure, it sends the message that this is what they want, that this is their plan, that, oh yeah, everything's functioning properly. So is the idea that they just let as many people into the country illegally as long as they can and then try to negotiate some amnesty for all of them so that they can become citizens?
They wouldn't have any idea who to grant amnesty to if they knew it. No, it's all about keeping power. I mean, if you could see the fact that they're well-dressed coming off these buses, they all have phones, and they're trying to give them driver's licenses, as an example, in New York to vote. Mm-hmm. And so it's completely, this is an invasion, and it's not per the Constitution. And talk to those that are on the border now, the Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and it's a travesty. Yeah. Look what it's doing to the budgets of the municipalities. Look what it's doing to the budgets of the hospitals, the schools. And it's really a frightening turn of events. For the last 20 months, we've had to put up with this.
Well, we got a little taste of what it's doing to the budgets for those municipalities, but only because the governors of Texas, Arizona, and Florida actually relocated some of these illegal immigrants to sanctuary locations like the District of Columbia, Chicago, New York, and Martha's Vineyard famously. Suddenly, we saw those Democrat mayors screaming for help from the Biden administration. Hey, we're not a border town. We're not Texas. We can't handle this. This is a strain on our resources. Well, welcome to the parties, pal.
Well, they're such hypocrites, Larry. They're elitist, and they're hypocrites know no bounds. And, you know, for them to get upset, I've yet to hear one Democrat protest the fact of what's going on the border. And also the sad part about it, to see all the steel and the beams that are laying rusted that have been paid for, along with the labor to put it up that the Trump administration began, is a complete sham that they're not using it. But, you know, for them to get upset, it's not in my backyard is their mantra. You know, they'll put it in every other state, but don't put it in Martha's Vineyard. Don't put it in New York. Yeah. I applaud Governor DeSantis. I applaud Abbott from Texas. We ought to all be doing this. And the thing about it, it's just a few hundred, 40 at a time. And for them to get upset when they won't voice any displeasure with what their administration is doing.
Congressman, you know, much of this is economic. Much of this has to do with jobs and with quality of life and the drain of resources. But there's also an incredibly dangerous criminal element that is flooding across our border as well, and now moving all around our country. And so much of it is wrapped around the drug trade and the very, very dangerous fentanyl that is crossing the border. I know that you've been exploring this through your capacity as a member of Congress. What can you tell us about how bad this is and whether the administration has any handle on stopping it?
You know, they don't intend to stop it. They just, the blood is on their hands. When, you know, we had a forum where a retired DEA agent showed us a pack of sweet and low will kill 40,000 people if it's replaced with fentanyl. And it's killing 300 a day in this country. And we've just begun to see the effects of it. Mike Garcia told of an instance that the gangs, he's from California, serves in Congress with me from there, and how they come into the meetings, you can see their guns strapped around their shoulders. They've completely taken over. And under the Trump administration, he had that limited. And you know, the MS-14 gangs were being stopped. Now they're welcome with open arms. Yeah. And again, the liberals will not say a word. This administration, including Mayorkas, intentionally is letting this happen. But the fentanyl that's affecting our young people, it's an assault on our younger generation too. And they have no intentions of doing anything about it.
Well, and we hear from, even from the Democrats, they acknowledge that the root of a lot of this dangerous fentanyl that's crossing the border comes from China. Nothing happens in that communist regime without Beijing having some fingerprints on it. Do you believe, Congressman, that this attempt to flood our nation with this dangerous, poisonous fentanyl is actually part of communist China's plan to undermine our country?
Absolutely. China is not a friend of the United States, and this administration has completely sold out to it. I mean, look at the ties that Hunter Biden has. Look at the so-called big guy, the dollars coming his way. And it's the press, the mainstream media has no intentions of researching this and trying to find answers to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, look what they did with the COVID, the origins of the COVID problem we had in this country. No, the media would not let it out. You couldn't even question it. But we've got to get our voice back, and we've got to, I think the voice will be heard on November 8th of this year, and it couldn't come quick enough. But how sad it is, you know, for the deaths of our young people. Absolutely no excuse for it. It needs to be stopped. That alone ought to prod this administration to do something about it, build a wall, have designated points of entry, and they're just not doing it.
Well, and to that end, let's talk about what happens after this midterm election. If, as anticipated, Republicans gain back the majority, obviously you're limited. There's just so much you can do, depending on what happens in the Senate, and certainly considering the fact that any legislation would need to be signed by President Joe Biden or whoever's telling Joe Biden whether he should sign something or not. So what do you want to do? What will you be able to do in the House once you get in charge of those committees? And also, by the way, personally, what committee do you want to be on? What investigation do you want to help spearhead?
Well, as far as, you know, what can be done, the first thing is getting the gavel out of Nancy Pelosi's hands, who, again, is an elitist whose hypocrisy knows no end. We start having policies that go to close the border, get the wall built, stop funding those agencies that are contributing. And you've got a lot of NGOs, non-governmental agencies that are taking part in all this. We got to stop funding those. And we've got to put an end to this mass registration of these illegal immigrants as best we can. And there'll be a flood. The new speaker will have the opportunity to have a flood of hearings. And I'm on oversight committee, but every committee will have subpoena power. We can get the people in to put them under questioning and under oath, which they're just not doing now. Nothing is going through regular order, Larry. Not the budget, not anything. Every hearing that I've had in oversight has been either on gender identity or equality or racism, and it's this country's facing too many problems to let that happen. But we'll start having hearings and hold them accountable, and there's got to be consequences. Yeah. We cannot let this continue.
Amen. We agree. Keep us updated, and here's crossing our fingers for that election. Congressman Ralph Norman, South Carolina, thanks for joining us, sir.
My pleasure.
Keep it here on O'Connor Tonight.